There is still a couple weeks left before some income tax season ends on April 15th. And of course, Kemberley Washington is here, and it means a lot of information that you need to provide, which can actually have you result in some mistakes for some people out there getting it all together.
Right.
CPA Kemberley Washington, always good to have you here.
Thank
I know
you
it's
so
a busy
much.
time of year.
Yes, it is.
Let's get into some ways that you can avoid that all important and dangerous IRS audit out there.
Right. So if you just get that letter that many people dread, there are a couple of things that you want to do, but you got to be careful when you're filing your tax return this year, because there are some things that can actually trigger an audit. So you want to be careful about those things.
So name the major thing we look out for.
Right. So the major thing is simple, is if you have high deductions on your tax return, whether you're individual or business, that could also pose as a red flag to the IRS, because they're looking at your income, they're looking at your expenses, and they're asking a question, how can you afford these deductions? So that's the first thing that you may have a concern about.
And one thing that we always think about when you have children, those deductions are important to people, but they could be a red flag as well.
It could be. So if you're claiming dependents that you normally do not claim, this could also be a red flag, especially if someone else is claiming that same dependent too as well. So you really want to be careful. If this is not a legitimate dependent, you want to be careful, because if you have to pay that money back, also penalties, it can really cause you a lot of money in the long run.
And that getting all that information together is important. And one thing that you say to watch out for is underreporting your income, right?
Underreporting your income. You have to keep in mind that the IRS not only receives your tax return, but it also receives documents from other third parties too as well. And so if they're sending in information at third party and it does not match up what you reported on a tax return, you may be the lucky person of an audit. So you got to be careful about that. So you want to make certain that you're reporting all of the income you receive, and that's even if you did not receive a 1099 or a W-2. Either way, you still want to report that income. And
you used to do this for a living, so you know exactly what you're talking about. What's the last thing that you have as far as watching out for these red flags?
I would say excessive business mileage. So if you're claiming a lot of mileage, you're not keeping a log, you don't have some type of way to verify this information, you really want to be careful as it relates to your tax return.
All right, and as always, every week you leave us with a little Kim sense to keep us in check.
So if you're facing an audit right now, I always say don't panic, don't be alarmed. And if you don't have your documents, one thing that you can do is verify with third parties. So that means reach out to other people who may have your documents, such as a credit card statement, look through bank statements, and try to find your information. And that way you can substantiate what they may be asking on the audit too as well.
And while we have you here, I know it's a big day out there. If you've been watching the markets at all, you know they have just fallen off a cliff basically, down 7% today. Talk a little bit about how people should react to this market turmoil.
Especially if you're looking at your 401k plans and you're like, oh God, what's going on? I say you just should stay the course, and you may want to talk to a financial professional at this time and just say, what moves do I need to make, if any? But I always say go back to your long-term strategy. If you're a person who 20, 30 years off, you should be fine through this course. But we know that this is a different time and there's a lot of uncertainty as it relates to the virus and things of that nature. But I say stay the course and make sure you talk to someone as it relates to, especially if you have anxiety or fears as it relates to your portfolio.
All right, stay the course. Some strong words.
Stay the course.
Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Christina.
You.